Hello my friends, I am Golden Anina. Welcome to my channel and to my very first build video. Building is one of my favorite things to do in The Sims, and I am so excited to share this one with you all. If you've watched my previous videos on the creation of the Washburn Edition, then you know that I have been wanting to get rid of the criminal hideout and replace it with a dog park. Well, I finally did it. Check out the Paw-Tastic dog park. Props to my husband for coming up with the name. Today, I'm going to be showing you my build start to finish. I'll also be teaching you some tips and tricks that I have learned and developed over my 15 years of building in The Sims 3 so that you can make your builds even better. If you are interested, I have a list of mods I recommend for building in the description of this video. All of them will be part of version 5 of the Washburn Edition. This was such a great space. It was driving me crazy to have this dilapidated building sitting right here behind the beautiful house I renovated for Ella and Maya. Before I got started, I went into Edit Town and deleted the criminal hideout. Then I changed the lot type to a dog park. From there, I entered into Build By mode from Edit Town. I love that the criminals who are working inside the building are now here just standing on the street. I decided to put a trellis-covered parking lot up at the front. I started by putting 4 parking spots down to get the dimensions right. Then I drew a fence around the parking lot with 1 square free around the entire area for decoration. I also used the same fence around the entire park to keep the dogs in. Now this is a great trick to know. If you want these posts, you just have to draw the fence in sections. Every section will create a new post. Next step was to put columns down to support the building of the flower-covered trellis. To do this, you need to turn the Moveobjects cheat on. If you have the mod I put in the description, all you have to do is press the O key on your keyboard. If you don't have that mod, just hold down Ctrl, Shift, and C, all at the same time on your keyboard to bring up the cheats console. Then type in Moveobjects on and press Enter. I placed columns around the parking lot and throughout the middle of it too. That will allow me to build on top of them. Next, go under fences and grab this one on here. It should be the second option. Draw the outline of the parking lot and then start building the cross sections. You can get really creative with this and make all kinds of different patterns. So I didn't realize until I was editing this video that the pattern wasn't even. The flowers will cover up that little imperfection, and honestly, I just don't have the patience to go back and fix such a small detail. Now go into the flower section under build mode and find the heathers. These low vines are perfect for trellises like this. I decided to use these 2 different heathers to decorate the top. I placed them in random spots to make it look more natural. Once you're done, go underneath and delete the extra columns. You can actually delete all of them if you want, and the trellis will still stand. Got to love video game logic. I used this stone flooring to make the outline of the parking lot. I'll change it later on once I get a good feel for the design and colors of the park. I decided to add shrubbery fencing to the parking lot to upscale it. The knights who say me approve. I'm sorry. That is now the knights who formerly say me. I then turned it to nighttime and placed some lights to make sure the lighting was just right. I put these lovely little trees and rose bushes over at the front and used this pine needle terrain paint to fill in the planters. Pine needles are actually used by some gardeners to help the soil retain moisture in real life. I also used the pine needle terrain paint to fill in that empty space between the fence and the shrubbery as well. Over here, I decided to put in 2 double gate areas as entrances to the dog park. If you have a dog in real life, then you know how helpful this is. I wasn't sure what to do with this spot here. I decided to put in a fountain, but I wasn't crazy about it and ended up removing it by the end of the build. This is what a lot of building is like for me, trying things out and changing my mind when they don't work. I went into this build with an idea, but not much of a plan. I love unleashing my creativity and just seeing what happens. And because of that exploration, each build I do is just a little bit better than the one before. You have to be willing to fail if you want to succeed at anything in life. I started work on the faux swimmable pond over here. Speaking of which, modders, can you please make me a mod that will make ponds swimmable? Can you maybe use the code from the ocean or something? That would be a dream come true. So I started with a single tile pool. It had been a while since I had made a bridge over a pool, and I wasn't sure it would work, but it did. I built a foundation on either side of the pool, then used a floor tile to connect it. I made it 3 tiles wide to line up with the gate and added stairs. But it just didn't feel right. So I decided to make it 2 tiles wide and add in another gate on the fence. Building a pool around a foundation can be tricky. You just have to play around with it. I made an oddly shaped pool to make it look as natural as possible. This involved several rounds of trial and error until I found something I actually liked. Then I used these semicircle pool tiles to make it feel even more realistic. I ended up redoing the pond again and added in another little bridge over here. I used this flooring since it looked the most like dirt, and this stone wall. And a little more editing to the pool. I spent so much time getting this right. Then I took the terrain tool and raised the area around the pool to make it look like a natural formation. And then I decided to use the pond tool to make a pond surrounding the pool instead. I took rocks and placed them all around the bottom and sides of the pool. It's a lot easier to do if you go down into the pool level. Random patterns tend to look a lot more natural. It's something I have had to work on as a builder, as I usually like everything to have perfect symmetry. Nature has its own symmetry, but it is on such a grand scale that the pattern can seem random to the naked eye. I also used the Create a Style tool to make the bottom of the pool darker so that it looks even more like a pond. And I used terrain paint on the sides of the pond and raised the banks. Time for some landscaping. I used a variety of different plants to give this faux pond the right feel. I absolutely love how it came out. I also added rocks to the separation between the pool and the pond to blur the two together. Another useful tip for you: if you hold down the Alt key, you can freely place objects anywhere. And if you hold down the Alt key while rotating an item, you can freely rotate it to any orientation your heart desires. This is about when I started to feel really good about this build. It's all coming together. I decided to expand the pond and give it some flair. I added in a fountain, then went into build mode and sorted by function. If you have the Buy Debug cheat enabled, or have the mod I mentioned in the description of this video, you can access a whole slew of items to use, including fish, bug, and butterfly spawners. I used these to add fish to the pond. Little did I know that some of those fish would spawn as sharks in a pond. But what the heck? It's The Sims, right? It's supposed to be wacky and weird. I flattened the areas on the sides of the pond to place park benches. You can't have a park this beautiful without having places to sit down and admire it. It's important to have the Moveobjects cheat off when placing usable objects. Otherwise, you may place them somewhere Sims can't access. To do this, hold down Ctrl, Shift, C, and enter Moveobjects off. I decided to use this terrain paint to make a winding path around the entire park. I placed one big tree on this little center island. Then I decided to build another bridge, this one a little more complex. I expanded the pool a little more. My idea was to make a swimmable pond where dogs could swim under the bridges. And it works! I added wall paint to the foundation pieces and customized the railings. I also used Create a Style to make a custom floor, and I matched the steps to the black pieces to tie them into the design. Since I decided on a double gate entrance, I changed out the 2 gates for one bigger one. I matched the wood to the railing to tie it in. Then I decided to get rid of the fountain to connect the 2 sides of the park together. I moved the other entrance one space over so I could mimic the entry gate. However, it just felt off, so I decided to move it back a space. Next was the bathrooms. I actually came up with a design while I was building the covered parking lot. I will definitely be using it in future builds. I copied a lot of the same colors and materials from the rest of the park to tie it all together. Just like with the parking lot, I placed columns so I could build above them. Unless you have a mod for it, Auto Roof is always on, so you have to turn it off manually and then delete the entire roof so you can place one where you want. I wanted a covered trellis walkway, and I love the result. Once I had the floor plan laid out, I went back to the park to finish the landscaping. The walkway took a few tries to get right. I added in doggy food bowls on one side, big dog beds over here, and small dog beds over here. Next was the doggy area. I placed 3 dog houses along with toys and dog treat balls. I added in a little more landscaping. By the way, the Soften Terrain tool is a great tool that makes the ground look less jagged and more natural. I added in more rocks and flowers to this little island along with terrain paint. I used this terrain paint around the edges of the pool as a finishing touch to tie it into the landscape. I left some areas clear so dogs could get in and out of the pool. I added in flooring on the second floor so I could design the ceiling. This is something I just recently learned how to do. All you have to do is angle your camera up at the ceiling, and then you can place any floor tile there. I added in some wildflower terrain paint to the ground over here. I cannot say enough good things about these custom content flowers by Sim Addicts. They are gorgeous and they move with the wind. I ended up going with these beautiful white flowers. I'll leave a link in the description. I added in more park benches by the doggy play area. I used the same peach-colored roses from the parking lot to tie the area in to the rest of the design. I put another bench and tree over on this side of the park. I tried some different designs out on the parking lot. I ended up splitting up the area and creating a walkway, which I love. I used Create a Style to match the same pattern from the stairs onto the parking lot and onto the fence surrounding the entire park. I also used this little fence to separate the parking lot from the walkway. I threw some simple bathrooms together, nothing too fancy. Next was lighting. I love these little fence post lights. I use them on almost every build. I put in fire hydrants because how can you not in a dog park? I also found these little gnomes under miscellaneous pet stuff that attract wild animals and stray dogs to wherever they are placed. Apparently, you can also use them to ward them off. These little stained glass windows are the perfect finishing touch to the bathrooms. I added in ambient lighting around the pond. I wanted to be able to see at night, but not lose the feel of the park. I also edited the fence to give it more posts, which allowed me to put up even more fence lighting. I tried to put little windows in this area up here, but they wouldn't fit, so I went with lighting instead. And here we have the finished product. This is one of my absolute favorite builds. And the former criminals are still standing there, which I find hilarious. I absolutely love how this park turned out. It's quaint and elegant, but not too over the top. It feels like it belongs here. The landscaping came out perfectly. And there is Ella and Maya's house in the distance. You know, I'm not gonna lie, there were several times while I was working on this build that I kept saying to myself, "What are you doing? This looks terrible." But I've found through experience that if you can push through your insecurities and learn from your mistakes, something beautiful is waiting for you on the other side. One of my favorite examples of this is an interview with George R.R. Martin and Stephen King. I am a huge fan of Martin's work. I have read all 5 books in A Song of Ice and Fire series, or Game of Thrones as it is more popularly known. The man is a genius with a very unique perspective into the human psyche. However, he takes ages to finish his books. Us fans have been waiting since 2011 for the next book in the series. Honestly, I would rather wait and get a better book than have him rush his work. Stephen King, on the other hand, is popping out best-selling books left and right, which led to this amazing exchange between the two authors. Martin asked King, "How the do you write so many books so fast? I think, I've had a really good 6 months. I've written 3 chapters. You've finished 3 books in that time." King replied, "The way that I work. I try to get out there and I try to get 6 pages a day, and I try to get them fairly clean. So if the manuscript is, let's say, 360 pages long, that's basically 2 months worth of work." Martin, "Do you hit 6 pages a day?" King, "I do." This is my favorite part. Martin, "You don't ever have a day where you sit down there and it's like constipation, and you write a sentence and you hate the sentence, and you check your email and you wonder if you had any talent after all, and maybe you should have just been a plumber? Don't you ever have days like that?" King replies, "No." I learned so much from that exchange. I learned that even one of my favorite authors, one of the most brilliant in my lifetime, in my opinion, has days where he doubts himself, days where he feels insecure, days where he measures himself against others in his profession and doubts himself. I am also a writer. Writing the scripts for these videos is the most writing I have done in a decade. I used to pop out 40,000 word chapters like it was nothing. And yes, I realize that is technically called a novella, but hey, give me a break. I was going through a phase. Unfortunately, since then, my life has been plagued with difficulties that have kept me from so many things that I love. Launching this channel and being able to create again has been a huge turning point in my life. And getting to read all of your wonderful comments, all of your heartfelt support has emboldened me to reach for even more. So, don't judge yourself by other people's standards, skills, and timetables. For instance, I was a terrible waitress, a terrible food service worker, and honestly terrible at many of the jobs I had when I was young. Anyone who tells you those quote-unquote menial jobs aren't skilled labor has never worked them before. I tried so very hard at those jobs, and I watched everyone around me be better at those jobs than I was. Things I struggled with, others excelled at with ease. It was so frustrating. But with time and my loving husband's words of wisdom and encouragement, I have learned that those jobs were just not in my skill set. I am a creator, a builder, a dreamer, a video editor, a storyteller, and so much more. I excel at creative, detail-oriented tasks that I can take my time on and get right. If you are like me and feel like you struggle to be good at the things you are working on, you have to find out if it is insecurity standing in your way of greatness, or if you are in the wrong profession. I always say, find a job that pays the bills while you seek your passion, your spark. Of course, that can be much easier said than done. But it is so important to look inside of yourself and explore who you are. Follow your passions and you just might find yourself. I know it is terrifying to try, to step outside of your comfort zone. But if you are like me, then it is even more terrifying to remain who you were told to be and never discover who you actually are. You have worth. You have value. You have talent and skill. You just have to find the things that are worth fighting for, the things that inspire you and set your soul on fire. Only you can see and experience the world as you do. I believe there is brilliance inside of each of you, inside of everyone. I think that inside of everyone there is a unique answer to the issues of the world around us. The trick to life is to find the right questions. Thank you so much for joining me. I have a link in the description of this video to download the Paw-Tastic Park. What do you think? Leave me a comment and let me know. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to get notifications. And if you would like to support my channel and the creation of the Washburn Edition, join me on my Patreon. Subscriptions start at just $3 a month. Until next time.